Hello everybody, and welcome to the Airfix Starter Set Challenge, where I can only use what's in this box and a knife. Let's start with actually opening the box and seeing what's in there. So we have 3 paints, our glue, a single brush, our instructions, water slide decals, and of course the kit itself. Funny enough, we do get this coloured page here, which is just telling you all the things that might help you build the model. So they recommend using nail file, tweezers, scissors, clippers, drills, tape and pegs. But of course, we're only going to use this and that brush. Now, in addition to that, also allowing to use water, because it's something that everyone will have. Let's have a look at the kit itself. Let's see. Nothing's broken on there, which is good. Let's see. I mean, it's not the most insane amount of detail, especially for the scale, but I mean, it's gonna look okay once it's done. Very few pieces, and the color it comes in is actually not a bad base color for this. So if you just glued it together without any paint, it'll be fine. Serviceable if you want to do wargaming with it. Now we've got these 3 paints here. This is the main reason why I'm going to allow water, is for the paints, and of course for the water slides. These sometimes dry out, so let's see what they're looking like. That is completely dry. Oh, that might not be salvageable. Dropped the paintbrush. Yeah, there we go. Yep, that's oh, no, it's no. What about the silver? Well, there's some oil there, but it's a bit soft. Might allow myself some acrylic thinner if I'm not able to agitate all of this with water, because we can save these. It's just getting them from their current state to something that's usable is going to be a challenge. Okay, let's see what we can do with this paint here. Let's start with the one that has the best chance. Just gonna put a bunch of water in. Now, to mix these paints up, usually use like a toothpick or something, but we don't have that. So we'll make our own with some sprues here, and then of course you can sharpen it. Oh, we might have something. There we go. Let's bring that into frame. It is actually liquefying, which is good. Means we can actually use this paint. I'm gonna need a bigger or longer stirring stick, I think. But let's see, with this cap here, if we can get it out. It is really gunked up there. That is like Play-Doh almost. But the water is working. Sure, if I just keep working at it, I'll eventually get it there. Okay, we were successful with the gunmetal. So let's move on to the greening. I'm gonna do, say that's about 10 drops. Oh, this is I don't know about this one. Let's get all of this in here. Oh, that just came off as a block. Well, we can give it some time, I guess, to maybe soften, and I don't know, we'll let that maybe see if it will soften up a little bit, and we'll go to the black now, which I don't know. Do the same thing. 2 squirts of water, and then I'm not really seeing any pigment in that water. It is just separated. We'll do the same thing, let it soften up maybe. If that doesn't work, I'll use a tiny bit of acrylic thinner and see if we can save it that way. But for now, let's just move on to the actual kit itself. Let's see, cutting this out, we're going to start by cutting far away. See if we can get away with just snapping that. The main thing is you want to avoid gouge marks and get a smooth surface so that assembling will be easier. The shortness of this blade and the thickness of this handle doesn't help, but I felt it was only right to make this as hard as possible to do the challenge justice. Well, there's our first piece cut out. Now there's some marring on there, but it's going to be something that gets fully painted, so that doesn't really matter so much. And yeah, it came out okay. Actually having a look at this piece a bit closer now, and yeah, I can see there's some details on there, but it's definitely lacking a lot. It's nowhere near a more expensive kit, that's for sure. This is the cheapest of its class, I guess you could say. And the only way you get really cheaper than this is if you get like one that comes in the bag. Let's see. There we go. Gotta be careful with the turret here. The barrel of the turret, should I say. Let's see. Just refer to the instructions. Okay, this is actually good. The instructions are in color, which is nice to see, from Airfix in particular. However, the paint guide is on the back of the box, of course. Let's see what year this kit came out. We can actually get a good idea of it having colored prints. This is a 2020 kit. I don't know if this molding is from 2020. I mean, it's a Sherman Firefly. It's a pretty popular tank, so I would assume that this mold is reused from longer ago, which is why we're not seeing so many intricate details on there, as the way they did making these models, making these kits, these model kits, before computer design, was they'd make them by hand and then make a master mold and then do everything from there. And of course they're quite limited by what they can do by hand sculpting things, and there would be significantly less details that you'd see, because also the molding machines are a lot more limited in what they could actually pick up. So they had to kind of nerf their own models down a bit. So even if their original model that they're basing the master mold off was super detailed, it would actually have to be done in a way where all those details, like panel lines, could be picked up by a casting plate, basically. So I'm guessing they would make a they'd make a mold that'd actually make it out of some sort of material that could be sculpted and tuned, and then they'll take that material and then make a cast, then cast that in wax, then make a, well, they wouldn't cast it in wax, they'll cast it, they might cast it in wax and then make that out of a different material, and then they would make a negative, and that negative is what is made of metal, or one of those. Maybe they make a wax print, a big wax block and put it in, and then that wax block gets turned into a negative. So there's a few ways. I'm not exactly sure how exactly they did it before computer aided design, but the point is computer aided design has improved the quality of everything. So the fact that you can use a computer to machine out a mold allows you to get a lot more intricate and detailed with the molds that can be produced. So the older kits, panel lines were actually raised details instead of an indented detail, and that was because of the way things were made, because of the limitations of the molds they could use then. Sorry if I'm going out of frame. So, try to keep it all in frame as much as possible. Okay, now we get to using the poly cement that's included. So we're going to use the box to help us get a more controlled application with this stuff. We're just going to use part of a sprue. Normally I'd use like a toothpick or something. You can use the brush. There's only one brush and you're likely going to ruin your brush with that, even if you clean it as well as possible. So let's do a little dry fit first. So it's going to go like that. Pretty simple. Has some nice guiding pieces in there, so this should be okay. Now let's see, the nozzle's actually not too bad. It isn't too big, so I'm just gonna very gently drop a tiny bit in each. And make sure I'm getting this oriented the right way, which I almost didn't. So it's going to go like that, and it holds pretty well. So if you need to get a much more careful application, which I probably will need in a bit, we're definitely going to use the stuff still, but we're going to put it down and then use something to apply it. Now the problem with using a piece of sprue is you can end up sticking this to the actual bottle, because the way this glue works is it's not like super glue where it's a separate thing. It's it actually melts the parts together, molecularly breaks down the bonds and then reforms them. So it's a little bit it's stronger than super glue. It's just especially with plastic. Well, with the plastic, it's stronger with the glue this way. But yeah, you can see how stuff that's meant to melt and connect the pieces can cause them to get stuck together when you don't necessarily want them to. Let's put this aside for now. In fact, I'm not going to use that. We can just use this sheet here. There we go. Okay, that's a little bit annoying. The instructions show in the first step orientated like this. In the second step, it shows it orientated like this, and it does not say to spin it around, even though you will need to. And I did end up doing it wrong. Luckily, it was only just a few dabs on each side. Good thing is the instructions do show you where the best place to apply the cement is, which is much welcome. However, don't know for sure if that is something that has been, tested and decided where the best points are, or whether that's just, something that they just guessed or suggested. Okay, let's check back on our paints. Start with black, and yeah, it's not looking like there's any improvement at all, which means we're gonna try a little bit of acrylic thinner, and the green is no better. Okay, this is a widely known issue, and unfortunately it happens. So we do have some acrylic thinner here, and we're gonna give it a go. Now it's tummy acrylic thinner, but should be fine. Use our little dropper here. Hopefully we've got enough thinner. Might have to use a different dropper. I think this thinner's gelatified a little bit, which is interesting. That'll be enough. Pop the cap on. Yeah, I'll do the same here. Be plenty. And once again, we'll allow it to soften up, and we'll come back in a bit. When I was younger, I did make quite a few models, and it was mainly just Star Wars. I think it might have been Revel kits, and my father would help me put them together, and made quite a few. Don't have any of them anymore, but I do have a picture of me inside of a advanced TIE fighter flying away from the Death Star, but it was using the model that I made. well, that's bad news. That piece fell on the floor. Well, I found it. Crisis averted. These parts truly are tiny, and I would be using tweezers normally. But to the challenge, I can't. Now, let's check on those paints. And no, not really seeing anything. We're getting some pigment coming out of the actual stuff here. In fact, it's a little bit of softness there. It is softening a little bit, but mind you, yeah, it's just really thinned out. So it is working. It's just gonna take forever, and I can try and speed it up a little bit by breaking up this here. Now I do live in a much warmer and I guess humid place than where this came from, so I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say hopefully if you're getting it you'll have better luck than me, but I have seen other people have had just the same as what I'm having right here. But we are actually getting somewhat of a usable paint out of this, miraculously. You can see that the thinner has indeed helped a lot. Now it is almost the exact same color as the actual plastic, but we can mix with the gunmetal and get a bit more range out of it. Really doesn't want to mix too much. There we go. Just getting it to that point where it is starting to liquefy again and homogenize, which this one is just about there. Just about almost there. There's definitely some big chunks still in there though, but it is usable. Now for the one that, to be honest, I don't really have much hope for at all. the black. Oh, no, no, it's hard to tell. It is softer. It is coming off the plastic. But is the pigment gonna suspend correctly and everything is another question entirely. That is, well, the top of the lid has somewhat come back. I don't even know where you'd really use the black paint on this. I guess on the road wheels on the tank. But that's it. That's the only place that you'd actually use this. Or use the black. But yeah, it's really I'm gonna try using something that can give me a bit more leverage. It is really turned into something else. Well, I'm gonna keep at this and we'll come back in a bit and see how I've done. Okay, I added some more thinner and with some prying I have gotten it to come out and kind of separate a bit, so we might be able to use it in a bit. We'll see. If not, I guess we can fall back on gunmetal. I don't know. So we could probably start painting, and we can start by painting just the tracks. So we're going to follow the guide on the back of the box and do it exactly how they say, and then after that I think I'll add my own flair. Now this brush is a nylon, not the greatest quality nylon brush, but it's better than nothing. So let's see how this paint is adhering to the plastic, and not too bad. However, gunmetal is always seems to be a paint that adheres very well to raw plastic. Now, good thing is I'm not really feeling any like mold release on here, meaning this should be good enough. Getting in under the tracks. Yeah, I'm actually, that's not bad coverage, so I'll continue this. Now the gunmetal base is down for the treads. Just gonna clean off the brush. We're gonna use just water, no brush soap today, as that would kind of go against the challenge. Still holding its shape well, which is important. Now come back to the gunmetal later. Let's check in on our friend the black paint and see how we're doing. Well, you can see the main blob here. I mean, it's barely usable. I'd say it's worth trying, but I want to try the green now. Okay, so this has had some time to set, I guess. I don't know. Still not really homogenizing much, but that is definitely usable. So let's start doing this. Let's give it a go. Yeah, it's a bit darker than the base. It's pretty thin first coat, but it is actually adhering to the plastic, which is the most important thing. Because as long as it's adhering to the plastic, it means you can still do it. It'll just take a lot more coats. It looks like one of the small ring loops have fallen through. There it is. We saved it. Now there are some really tiny parts in this, like extremely tiny parts, which yeah, are a challenge indeed. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead, put a coat or two, and I'll come back in a minute. Okay, so this is the first coat. It is spotchy as all hell, but is definitely working. Now it's basically kind of like putting shading and a glaze with the consistency of this paint, and it is actually kind of working, and I think it will come out to be a pretty interesting effect in the end. Now it's just getting it on there, and I'm just seeing how it comes out now. But I am actually finding it is working. Now, as for the black, I'm not sure. We're going to put that on in a bit. But yeah, this is actually acting as like natural shading, and it is how I'd actually approach a model that already has a base color on there. Now, since the plastic is already a pretty close color, it's just too light, it's a light shade. It actually works perfectly for this sort of thing. Now, if this was any other color, if the base plastic was like grey, this would actually be taking forever and would probably not work, but because we lucked out and it is green, or this is just something that Airfix is doing now for just their starter kits, or in general, having the base plastic be molded in a similar color, that would be nice. Anyway, I'm going to continue at this. See you in a bit. Now, trying the black, seeing if we can get any sort of coverage, and no, it is just a super thin glaze basically. So I think what the best way to approach this would be to do a base in gunmetal and then glaze up to make the road wheels darker, and it will hopefully give the same effect, if not give it more depth than it would have if it was just painted straight black. So I'll be giving it a go. Okay, I've fully assembled the model and Yeah, it's not bad. Still drying with the treads being glued on there. So probably what's best now is to just give it some time to dry out a bit, and come back and finish off with the painting. Okay, so I've mixed in the black with gunmetal here, so we can hopefully try and make these road wheels a little darker, but it is still not really giving us the coverage. Now I'm debating whether I should just open up some black paint that I already own and use that, because like I said before, this sort of thing is definitely like a mileage may vary sort of thing, and I don't think it's necessarily representative of what you might get, but it is also possibly what you might get as well. I do kind of want to do the road wheels, however it is hard to actually tell. On top here you can see it actually does blend in quite well with the treads here on this reference image. It's render really. So we might just leave it as it is and do some weathering on top of it. So now on to weathering. Let's well, before we do that, we want to get a few points of detail painting there are to do on this, and there are a few little bits of detail painting to do. I'll knock everything over. On the top side here we have some bits of gunmetal which we can just paint in pretty easy. The tip of this is holding up, which is good. We have some more tools here, which a good coverage on there. That's good. Let's have a look. This is meant to be black and gunmetal, but you see it's gunmetal because black does not want to work. And then we got some more tools here, which come out okay. Just make sure we can just tool. There we go. And there's one on the back, like so. And I believe that is all the detail work. And we'll just pour this water in here. Don't need too much. I mean, we might as well just put the whole water slides in there because there's so few of them that you can get them all out in time. So don't normally do this. Normally just cut out the ones you want to do and then put it in and everything, but for the sake of, oh boy, it is curling like crazy. Just make sure we get it nice and soaked. And now we want to, usually want to use tweezers, but that would go against the challenge. We do have the brush, and we do have our bits of sprue, which will help a lot. Let's see. So we got it here, and then we can put that side. Sorry if I'm getting in the way of the camera. Don't want to do that. There's not much I can do to get a better angle right now. Oh boy, having to use my fingers to move this thing is quite nerve-wracking. Well, there you go. It looks okay. And we're going to use weathering to help hide the silvering effect. Fortunately, the decal is actually a little bit bigger than the area that they want it to go on. Usually, you could use mark softener, and that would help get it in position, and it would, you know, curl around the edge. But we cannot do that, unfortunately. Officially got the water slides all on, and on myself as well. Okay, now on to weathering once the decals are dried. Now we have 3 paints here that we can mix and match to various degrees for the weathering. Now we're not really going to use the gunmetal much, unless I want to do some sort of dry brushing effect on some of the green, maybe show some scratches or something, which I'll probably do, so we'll give that a go. And I won't do a dry brush, but I will do some chipping, so we're just gonna very gently go over some of these edges. Now the barrel here, I'm actually gonna do a tip like that, and then we're gonna do some black scorching on there. Now some of these edges here would definitely be more worn down. Now unfortunately, because of how limited we are with the paints, there are some things that we just are not going to be able to do that I would normally do, which is a bit of a shame, but it's just unfortunately how it's going to have to be. I always like getting corners. Now thankfully, because of how the green turned out, it has given us some nice natural shading to this model. I'm sorry if you can hear all that thumping. That is my upstairs neighbours, which are always quite loud, stomping around. Okay. It's quite subtle because the gunmetal isn't super bright, but that's kind of ideal for weathering. Now we're going to mix the green and black to give us some options for shading. So I'm going to definitely shade darker lower and try and give a bit of sense of scale to this thing. Now we're going to do that with a mix of washes and maybe a bit of layering. So still unknown how I'm going to approach this apart from just washes. We can definitely do stuff like this. You can mottle the paint basically, and it gives it that worn used look. And you can do it for areas that will be more used, that move more often. And it really is a subtle effect. It's not going to be super noticeable, but it will help and it will go some distance. Gonna get that barrel, give it a glaze, maybe try and make it look a bit scorched. I don't know how well it's coming up on camera. Just gonna do the same thing on this side. Start giving it a glaze and then working it out, working it through. Do a bit on the lower areas here. Put it on the treads as well. Make sure they aren't going in. You can always look up reference images to help you. Alright, now I'm going to do some streaking effects. And we're going to use just the black. And we're just going to bring the brush down and use just the tip of the brush. Bring it down, so we definitely want to put a glaze there. And this is just a lengthy process, and it's just a gradual process. You take your time with it, and you just add layer after layer, and it will add that shading, that realism that you would expect to see or something that is full size. So I'm going to keep doing this and I'm going to come back when it's done. And there you go. I could keep going with more layers of shading and everything, but I'm pretty happy with where this is. And I mean, if I really wanted this to be like a competition sort of piece, then I would, you know, go all out and do proper techniques on there and do all sorts of different mediums and everything to give it like proper level of grime and dirt and everything. But all in all, I'm happy. And I noticed a big mistake I made. I put on the markings the wrong way around, but they look fine as they are with the triangle behind the star, but it looks fine. And it's a little late to change it now. I could very carefully take those off, those decals, and try and set them back again in the right way. Totally didn't just spend 15 minutes very carefully moving those water slides to the correct sides. Totally didn't. But there you go. That's the starter set challenge. Was I successful in making a nice looking model out of just the stuff in the starter kit, plus a knife, of course? I'd say so, yeah. I'd say I just kicked the camera. I'd say, yeah, I was successful. Yeah. No, thank you for watching and sticking through to the end here, and hope it was informative. I hope that maybe you learned some things, you learned some techniques or some parts of the process, the model making, and hopefully you'll stick around and maybe you'll make a model of your own and take on the starter kit challenge yourself. Now, would I recommend other people to do it? If you're an experienced modeler, I'd say it's worth it for some fun. But if you never made a model kit before, I definitely recommend following the advice and getting these tools. You don't need all of them. The things you really need are a nice blade, some clippers, and a nail file. We just use some fine grit sandpaper, and that's basically all you really need. And then on top of that, definitely get yourself some nice paints. Now, I haven't really used Humbrol much in my life. I've used it only a handful of occasions, and definitely prefer Tamiya and SMS and Vallejo. Those paints I prefer, but whichever ones that you have the most experience with, or the ones that you prefer the most, I would recommend using those. I would definitely recommend getting some sort of decal solution. It was a bit frustrating with having to heavily weather this. Now, if you wanted to do like a full factory fresh sort of look, you would have to definitely use decal solution, and then you'd want to top coat it with a spray, whether that be through a can or with an airbrush. Hand brushing, haven't done hand brushing in a while. You know, been airbrushing for a few years now, and it was kind of nice to go back to hand brushing for a bit, and hand painting. No, it was definitely an experience that I'd recommend people at least give it a go at some point. But hopefully you think I was successful and made a good looking model out of it. Now, like I said before, this thing ain't winning any prizes or anything, and yeah, we did have a bit of damage on the decal, but you know, it does work with the overall worn, grimy aesthetic, which I was quite happy with. But there you go. That's the model. That's Starter Kit Challenge. If you liked, hit the like button. If you didn't like, hit dislike button. Any feedback is welcome. If you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification button next to it. But for now, hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Goodbye.